Hello, hello.
What's up, Matt? How you been?
I'm doing okay, man. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Doing
Yeah.
great.
Um, yeah, it's been weird here in Baltimore. It's like spring again. And
I, I'm wearing shorts right now, and
yeah,
it's bothering me.
it's weird, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean it's definitely one of those global warming is real kind of days now, isn't it?
yeah. You know what I was gonna start saying like, hey, man, it's that time of year again when it's like
Yeah.
we start getting cold. It's.
Yeah, and like I'm going skiing this weekend, so it's a weird split
Oh,
when I'm in shorts right now, you know?
well, how's the snow? Because I mean, you go.
I'm sure it's terrible.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
fun.
But not out not have you seen what's going on out west, man? My parents actually called me the other day. They snow in Tahoe is at 177% of annual right now.
Holy shit. So that
Yeah.
stuff's a fraction of that makes it this way, and our world is completely different.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what's going on and they got hit with another storm I think today. So, I mean it's definitely a good time to be skiing out in the West Coast for
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
the crazy thing also was like, what was 2 weeks ago? It was 7 outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple weekends ago, yeah, I the wind chill on the mountain was -30 in western is
Wow.
yeah, like so yeah, it was crazy. Guy's water heater froze and exploded inside his
Jeez.
house because
Jesus.
the way the wind was blowing, apparently it went through the vent and it was so cold it froze his hot water heater inside
Oh,
his house.
oh
So
God.
like talk about like how cold does it have to be to not only chill out boiling water, but freeze from the outside in. Like I mean,
And
it's like
completely take out an
yeah,
insulated
I
water
mean
heater.
it's crazy. But yeah, friends of ours that live up in the area out there, they said it was terrible. People were losing power. People were losing
Well, I mean,
anything
didn't
water
Texas get
related.
another giant blackout too because it dropped below like 50?
Sure, yeah, right, exactly. People are like, oh my god, what is going on here? Yeah. So cool, man. What have you been up to lately?
Man, I gotta say, like, I punted last week on the episode because I just got a cold plunge tub delivered to my office.
Oh yeah, man. How's
And,
that?
it was part of it is like, I do things because, yeah, we're in this arena, we're talking about this stuff all the time, but I just don't want to chase a fad because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it made so much sense to give people another option to get cold and not just do cryotherapy. And I
Sure.
gotta say, after doing cryotherapy at its coldest setting for what, 7, 8 years now, um, cold tub hits different.
So walk us through it.
So when we have the cryo, right? I mean that gets down to 256 Fahrenheit, and that
Yeah.
sounds like it's stupid. It's insane. Why the hell would you do that? And you get into it and you shiver and you get cold, and it's like I would, waiting for a bus on a cold winter's day is what I would say. You get in the cold plunge tub, and the way the heat conveys, because now it's a liquid in contact with your skin. I feel like it pulls it out of your core more.
Hmm.
Like the hit on the outside, your skin from the cryo, it contracts, and then the muscles contract, and the fascia and the blood vessels, all that squeezes back to the core. When you're sitting in the cold plunge tub, it's pulling it out of your core.
Interesting.
So, all these studies are between like not even that cold if we talk about it, 50 degrees to 32 degrees, right? So it's not it is we're still on the plus side of the equation. Yeah, we haven't crossed that zero, and it's insane.
Interesting. I have to be completely candid. Nothing about a cold tub sounds pleasant to me.
Yeah.
And I've done it several times and it's really um it's jarring in indescribable ways. Like
Yeah.
it is not super fun.
And I think almost that like and I'm gonna knock biohackers here. That real alpha male, like, look at me, I'm young and successful and powerful.
Sure.
Like, they want to do it because of that. Like, I mean, we're about the same age. You remember everything was extreme in the mid '90s. Like,
Sure.
giant monster trucks and fucking Taco Bell extreme, and everything was extreme. I think there's still some of that alive and well in the typical biohacker. You know, I think there's like a,
Totally.
how can I do this more powerful? You know, and
well, I mean, remember back, I mean, I remember listening to, you know, Greenfield back in the day where he was like, oh, there's a river behind my house. And, you know, it's in Montana or Idaho or wherever the hell he's at. And in the wintertime, we can go out in the stream. And I'm like, you know, maybe my mind would be different about this if I was the guy who lived in that environment. You know, I mean, that sounds rational. I'm, you know, like if you are a biohacker and you live right next to a stream and it's December and that water's cold as shit, why not? Like, you know, but I was always like, well, I'm not gonna, I guess since I can't buy it and bring it to my house, I guess that's the only reason I don't like this. Well, guess what? Now that I can buy it and bring it to my house, I'm still choosing not to because I'm like, nope, still don't like that.
Well, I mean, honestly, you know, with the way the groundwater is, you turn on you fill up your tub on cold, you're probably pretty damn close to 50 degrees or lower.
Oh, all year round?
No, now, you know, the winter, you know, the winter it's 62.
Sure. Yeah, right.
But you know, like if you take a cold shower in February, it feels a lot different than when you take a cold shower in July, and it's not just because you want to cool down in July, right? That water coming out of the ground. And it's funny because you know, we've talked about like you walk into your kids to school and me going outside and doing qigong in the morning in just shorts. You know, once you hit March, if you've done that through the winter, it doesn't hit the same, right? It's already warmer. The ground isn't as cold. You're not getting that like radiant temperature change coming up from the earth. You know, but like to consistently have a tub at my office that's at like 37 degrees. Oof. You know, and of course.
And do people just jump right in, or are they kind of?
So you know, we had to figure some of this out, right? Because it's like we supply everything else for most of the services, right? And if it's a nude service, clearly you're in a room by yourself. This we want people in a bathing suit, and honestly, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm rightfully so. I'm more concerned about a cardiac event in the cold plunge than I am in the cryotherapy.
You know, it's funny. I think about that all the time. I'm like, you know, how many times you hear about this, you know, guy or girl at like a Iron Man or something that jumps in the water for the swim and fucking keels over.
Well, let's think about the perfect storm there. You know, it's like their adrenaline's pumping. You know, they're under a high stress event. They've probably overtrained.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
statistics.
You know, you're setting something up, and then the shock of the whole freaking thing of like, hey, I'm going to run into water that's literally going to knock you out. You know, it's
no. Well, there's this polar bear plunge in the lake, and it benefits I think Special Olympics. Yeah, and they've been doing it for years, and he was in a networking group that I belong to, and he's like, so you're going to do this? I'm like, no, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not. I'll donate to your cause, but I'm not doing that. Well, and he's like, oh, come on, I've done it. I was like, how many times have you done it versus run it versus done it? And he's like, once. I was like, see, don't lecture me, buddy. Like,
well, you know, remember the Shift Society? They had the Special Olympics there once, right?
Yeah.
And we, you know, they were asking for some help how to like promote these you know, these rock star athletes and get them, you know, these kids to participate more and cover their costs, you know. And after the meeting, I was talking to one of the guys, and he's like, "Oh, you want a cryotherapy machine? Hey, you know, we do this special one where like." For 24 hours, you go in once an hour. And he's like, you should do that. And I'm like, no. Like I'll do 6, I'll do 8. You know, like I need to sleep. That's like,
no, not doing that.
What's worse than putting on a wet bathing suit? Putting on a wet bathing suit in freezing cold temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
24 times.
Yeah, right. How does this get worse to worse to worse? Yeah.
And then he's like, all you got to do is raise $10,000 and you can do the 24 hour. I'm like, you give me $10,000.
Yeah, right.
I'm not doing the 24 hour.
That's hilarious. Right. Oh my goodness. Wow. So yeah, I mean, have you jumped in this thing yet?
I've been in it a couple of times, right? So the first time I'm like, let me see if I can do 3 minutes. 3 minutes wasn't so bad. But, one thing I do notice is the snapback from the cryotherapy, this rebound effect. You get out of that and your body goes, oh shit, I almost froze to death. You can feel the blood vessels open up, right? You start feeling the heat come down to the extremities.
Sure.
I jumped into the tub. The first day was Saturday morning because I fixed it. I was dealing with setting it up Thursday. I didn't have time to go in it on Friday. I said, Saturday, got to do it. So I did it. I got in early to work and I did 3 minutes. And about an hour later, I'm like, oh shit, my belly's still cold.
Wow.
And then Tuesday, I did like 8 and change. And I drove home and I'm like, hon, I'm like cold to the core here. I'm still cold.
Wow.
A 20-minute ride. But the whole thing and I forgot what her first name is. Her last name is Schoenberg. She did like a dissertation and she talks about cold plunges because she lives somewhere in the north next to a big body of water, and she's been doing this for quite a time now.
Interesting, right?
Haberman Labs quotes her quite a bit. I can't say that. Why can't I say his name now? But anyway, she wrote a book on it, and I'm like, that's in my Amazon cart now.
Wow.
Maybe
cool.
She'll have some tips, and she's a big advocate of like you have to allow your body to warm back up, so don't jump into a hot bath or a sauna right after.
Yeah, I it's funny. There's certain things about certain things that just feel natural, and that warm up cycle that you're mentioning, it would never even occur to me to jump into a sauna or a bath. Like I you know what I mean? Like I just feel like that makes more sense. Now, I don't know why, but like, I feel like some of those things, your body's just like, there's a better way to do this. And I'm going to tell you.
I think it's also like what effects are you trying to play up? So if you're trying to make brown fat, you want your body to work to warm itself up. If you're trying to burn calories, you want your body to warm itself up,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's very true, but I'm trying to think what's the reason why you wouldn't want those things? Like if you're doing cold therapy,
I would say, if you're dealing straight with inflammation, physiologically, get you cold, squeeze everything out,
right?
Get you warm to vasodilate and flush the remainder of everything out, right? Like, so, all right, I'm going to wring you out like a sponge, get the cytokines, the lactic acid out of the tissue,
sure.
Jump into a hot thing, vasodilate, pump fresh blood in.
I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah, I
think that is more for me clinically. That makes more sense.
Yeah, I was going to say the only time I've ever really dealt with cold, it's been mostly around like a metabolic reason, right? It's and so like I think most people I've talked to anyway, I think that would be their primary use case for that. But I mean, I guess that's not entirely true now that I'm thinking about it though. Like the times I have done cold tank has been after like a run, like a long distance run.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously great. I mean, you get out of that and it's like the run never happened. Like it's amazing. Like, and so I guess that's not entirely true. And I would say that that's probably less metabolic in Genesis than, I mean,
one of those things is you're getting like, you don't tease out one effect just because you want that more. Like if the body is going to do it, it's going to do it,
Interesting. Well, I'm going to live vicariously through you for the time being on this one because
we'll have you down. Maybe we'll do a podcast in it. It'll be tight, but
no.
It'll be the shortest podcast we ever do.
Shortest podcast in the history. You wouldn't even, it would be the intro and we'd be out. Like, so. Yeah, I'm not even sure I could last through the intro on that, to be quite honest.
Well, this has been a great discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
And yeah. And more from our news desk. Here's whoever. I'm getting the fuck out of this stuff. So Here we are, just in case, who knows when the hell this gets out or listened to, but we are rocking and rolling in yet another trip around the sun.
Yeah, happy New Year.
Yeah, for real. And so, I know we did this time last year, but as we discussed ahead of the show, like, I feel like New Year's resolutions are an absolute mandatory when you have a health podcast.
And I also think that, like, you get new stats every year, right? There's more things that have been written since last year.
There's way more things to obsess about.
Look at it.
Yeah. Every year we could obsess about brand new stuff.
There's always new stuff, and now they're like, "Hey, do you know what the millennials are doing?" It's like, oh, I didn't even think it would be different.
Yeah, no, like, did I what? Huh? Yeah.
Gen Zers really want to find love.
Well, yeah, you're like,
okay.
Doesn't everybody? Like, yeah, right. So I am fascinated by New Year's resolutions, as I think you are as well.
Yeah.
And today, this show, I should say, I learned a new stat that I think is absolutely breathtaking, and why I wanted to talk about this again today.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, the top 3 most common resolutions are health related, and 48%, which is the number one alone, is exercise. People want to do more exercise. And I cannot tell you how infinitely fascinating I find it that we are all, like, still unaware of how to live healthier lives, when half of us, the resolution is to do more exercise.
And that's not even, we're not even quantifying that into, like, I want to get, stronger, or I want to lose weight, or anything like that.
I want to run a marathon.
I need to move more.
Yeah. And you know what? I wouldn't even venture a guess as to how many of those 48% of the people are people that are like, I want to run my first marathon, versus I want to stand up from the couch.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to get out of breath going upstairs.
Yeah. Right. Like, but my guess is, if I was a gambling man, the vast majority are probably going to be closer to the latter. And cause I would think that the percentage of people being like, I want to run my first Ironman, is probably single digits.
Well, you know what? And the crazy thing there is, like, the what we're looking at is, from compiled from InsideOutMastery.com. I would like to see, because it's referencing, the New Year's resolutions in the UK. It's looking at things from, like, a Swiss study. I'm wondering, is that, like, global? Or does it get even more so, say, in the States, where weight and image and exercising is like, people hang that on their persona so much, and you're almost guilted.
Sure. Yeah. And like, what I think is funny about when you look at New Year's resolutions, and I think you can see this in other ways too, but the geography is almost becoming less relevant every year.
As we become a more globalized,
because, like, McDonald's is making Indians just as fat as Germans, just as fat as Americans. Yeah, they just happen
to be, like, halal and veggie burgers. Yeah,
right. But it's making people fat all over the world.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't really matter, right? So, like, and technology to live longer. I mean, think about that. Like, the primary people that I consort with, and you consort with, and people we follow online, they can dress this up any which way they want, but life extension is a primary, and if not solitary, motivator of most of these health people. Why else do you want to be healthy other than to live longer? Period.
Yeah, I mean, if that had no bearing on it, well, fuck it. I'm gonna, like, let's start doing smoking 3 packs a day, and
I would do that in a second if it didn't freaking, if it doesn't matter,
if it didn't change your health outcome. Yeah,
right. But here's the thing. It does. I know it does. And so I don't run around with a pack of Marlboro Reds in one hand and a fucking 8-ball of cocaine in the other. Like, I just don't do that, because, well, that's not wise. Right. And so here's the thing. So when you live in a place where people are like, I don't understand, why am I fat? And then 40%, that's nearly half of the world, goes, that was studied in here. And just level set on here, this was sort of an interesting meta-analysis of a bunch of New Year's resolution
Yeah.
articles put together, and we're just kind of cherry picking some of them. So, but it said that, almost half the people's goal is exercise. What does that intrinsically say about us?
Yeah. It's funny to me that, like, once again, not quantified. What does that mean to everybody too? So that's a big bucket.
It's a big bucket.
It's a big bucket.
And here's the thing, inside that bucket, you're going to have all kinds of different little buckets, right? Like some people are the 800-pound person on the couch who's on the TV show and needs like literal intervention. And then other people are like, I want to run my 10th Ironman, right?
Yeah.
And you have everything in between, right? And so, but what the funnier part about that, I mean, when they start breaking this down even more, and I think this is where it starts to kind of get more interesting, because you can start Venn diagramming this stuff in a weird way. But almost 60% of the people in their study were people 18 to 34.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest subset of people. Now, I know there's a lot of people in that, like 18 to 34 is what, millennial.
So you're catching
and Gen Z,
like mid millennials into the Gen Zers.
You're right. Okay.
The mid Gen Zers. Yeah.
So definitely at least a generation and a half below you and I. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but still, like that, there's not that many more people. It just, it's goes. The thing I find interesting about that is because that's the group of people that would be more inclined, in my experience, to sort of take some of these fringier things seriously.
Yeah.
And as a result, the health outcomes are undeniable, right? Like a case in point, the last Olympic that I did, 2 guys behind me were in their early 20s, and I heard them talking as we were standing with the swim had to be canceled. So they were doing a 2x2 start into the bike corral instead, and they made it a duathlon. But they were talking, they're like, they were actually talking about their own HRV and how it messed up last week's training schedule pre-race because their HRVs were off and like they had to make adjustments. And I asked them, I was like, hey, I couldn't help but to overhear, but do you guys train exclusively off of HRV? Now, these are guys that knew everything about HRV, like literally everything. Like, and they had watt meters in their pedals. So like they can track their wattage over, and like everything was data. And these guys were absolutely fucking fit as fiddles, right? And now granted, who knows if that's why, but like they were proficient. I actually ran into one of the 2 guys afterwards, and he was like in the top of the age group. And I was talking to him, and they belong to a local triathlon group, and like they train very, very scientifically, right? And so that's not something that like our generation would have done.
Well,
by
we
default.
didn't like. I mean, let's face it. They call us Zennials, right? We're on that Gen X, millennial, where it's like, yeah, we're not afraid of technology. We just didn't have them, and we didn't have cell phones in grade school.
Sure, yeah, and that's a big difference.
And it's like anytime you played sports, you just did what the coach said. There wasn't like hold on, let me check my heart rate monitor. Let me
right. I said you 50 push-ups in the fucking rain. Yeah, right.
Oh, what am I doing after? Oh, you better stretch. It wasn't like, well, I'm going to go take this class that I know.
Yeah.
Here's the study on the right kind of recovery for this. It just wasn't accessible or available to us, right? And even the exercise physiology or the sports medicine people were like that information was behind a wall. It wasn't accessible if you did have it, or it wasn't something wearable.
Well, let's just put it. Let's do full stop here. Had you ever heard the word exercise kinesthesiologist prior to being out of college? Right?
No, it wasn't talked about until like you were at that level where people were like declaring majors.
Right. And it's like one of those things where you're like, I don't even know what the fuck this is. How would I even pick that? You know what I mean? And so what I'm saying is like they have so much access to data now that like, it doesn't surprise me that age group is making more
and they're
New Year's
native
resolutions.
to it. They're it's like, well, what can I do?
Well, they're native to making decisions and commitments in an age where keeping commitments is quantifiable in every
Everything,
in every way, shape, and form, right? New Year's resolutions are hardly new. Like if my grandparents made a New Year's resolution in 1948,
yeah.
like it would have been probably something like kick the tobacco for a month or something. You know what I mean?
Cut
Like
down from these delicious cigarettes.
Yeah, right.
From like
It would have
10
been like,
packs a day.
yeah, exactly. Like, and like, what do you think adherence to that was? Because it was a half-cocked, sort of social checklist to begin with, right?
Well,
And
it's funny. You said, "Oh, we've been making resolutions," and just one more historical fact: the ancient Babylonians, because that's in that same article, 4,000 years ago, were making.
Oh, that's funny.
Their New Year's was around the fall harvest.
I totally missed that part.
Yeah, no,
wow.
that was a footnote that I was like, oh, that's cool.
That is
so.
Neat.
We've been fucking this up for 4,000 years
for a long time. Yeah, right. So what is also funny is that there were hundreds of articles on how to make good on your New Year's resolution, how to keep up with your New Year's resolution. And this sounds kind of, stupid because I'm about to trash that while I'm also perpetuating that.
Yeah, I got you.
but at the same time, it's so funny. Everything's exactly the same. And I'm like, kind of say to myself sometimes, I'm like, you know how you make a successful, podcast or blog post? You basically say what everybody else says.
Yeah.
Exactly to the word, and not even get creative at any point, really.
No, man. Like, and honestly, come on, we see it all over social media, and every influencer. Oh shit, it's a red light week.
Yeah, right.
No, it's like, why?
But I'm even talking about
20 people in front of a red light.
Right. I'm talking about something even more fundamental, which is basically like they're not even like actual tips. Like, I'll be honest with you, like maybe 9 out of 10 of the shit I read were basically just fortune cookie horoscope style, Confucius says.
But like, honestly, that's
versions of but it was versions of how to keep your promise, right? And it's like, get up earlier, go to bed later and get up earlier or something. And I'm like, okay, what?
But that, how does that apply?
Right.
One that I did see, which I think you kind of touched on with your young racer friends there.
Right.
Quantify it, right? Can I measure it? Can I track it?
Can I fucking measure it?
Yeah.
And I've loved that shit for years. And you know what? Like, I mean, I like looking around my immediate surroundings. I've got a Vilight. I've got I've got the posture control. I've got my Aura Ray. Got my music. That's just within eye shot. Yeah, I love quant, man. But like, I mean, listen, I'll be man enough to admit it. I don't do shit with this data. I just like knowing it's there.
But and I think that's probably more prevalent than you think, right?
More prevalent? How could it be more prevalent than I think? I think everybody doesn't do anything.
Everybody does it. Why? I want the shiny toy.
Sure.
Like even like I was like really hesitant to get on the constant glucose monitor train, and then my friend goes, it's only $35.
I know, and I'm,
and I'm like, fuck it, I'll do it. And then what I took away from it? If I drink alcohol, it really fucks up my blood sugar for a long time.
Yeah, great.
But like, that's good. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
Maybe. But like, are you going to drink less beer because of it now? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like, I didn't feel as bad about eating that cake.
Right.
That one didn't mess me up nearly as much.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that dude Sarah follows online. The blood. He has like a really fun description of his daily adventures with his blood glucose monitor. And he did bagel and cream cheese the other day. It was like, it was like a rocket ship. And I was like, that is jaw dropping. I cannot tell you how many bagels with cream cheese I've eaten in my entire life.
I also wonder if the variability among people is as wide as I think it is. Hell, maybe it takes 6 bagels and cream cheese for you.
But see, isn't that sort of the mantra of what you and I say every time we talk about this? Like the whole thing that makes me interested in this entire conversation, not today, but our bigger conversation, is that it's N of one medicine, man. This doesn't matter what the fuck happens to me.
Yeah.
This is only has to do with you because you're the only person that exists to you.
Yeah. And it's pretty funny because we need to draw from data that comes from a big pool of people.
No, that makes
to
sense.
make those informed guesses, because at the end of the day, it's just a guess. And it's crazy to me that the sample size and what we pull, like even with these New Year's resolutions, the age range, what did you say, 18 to 34?
Yeah.
And who are they asking? Are they asking, college-educated people? Who, it's like, are they only getting them from here?
If you go through the bibliography on this, it is actually a really wide array of sources, and there's like 20 of them. So,
oh wow.
I mean,
all right.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're combining all of that data from
this is like his own. This is his sort of meta-analysis of all those sources.
Right? I gotcha.
And I went through and looked at them, and like it's a mix of scholarly articles and social like editorial stuff. So it's a little all over the place, but I guess the quotes were good to have. The site, and we put a link to that in the show. But the I don't know, the point that I took away from this is basically younger people are engaged in this habit because the habit can produce, like I said, if you look at it through the lens of those dudes that I was talking about, everything can be measured, right? Like I can say, like I could use Muse. Did I keep a New Year's resolution to meditate?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
I missed 3 days in January. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so like you could look at it. Or did I go to bed earlier? Fuck you. I got Aura ring. I know you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can like literally be called out on your bullshit. And even like when you, like MyFitnessPal, go back to that thing's been around forever.
Yeah.
The funny part about MyFitnessPal is you can friend people on there who could look at your fat ass eating all kinds of dumb shit you shouldn't be eating.
And not getting off of it some cases,
Right. Right.
What was that? Was there was like Gym Pact or something? There was that one that you put money into a kitty.
Oh, I love that idea. Yeah.
And like you fuck up, somebody else gets your money.
Yeah, I love it. It's a genius idea because here's the thing, man. Like I'm guilty of this just the same as anybody else. I got all this data. My uncle said, or my wife's uncle said to me, he's like, thinking about getting the Aura ring. What do you act on any of the data from your Aura ring? And I was like, no. Like, no, I do not.
I bought an expensive ring.
Yeah. And
he's like,
I don't think, I said, but that's not the question that you want to ask me. And he's like, well, what's the question I want to ask you? And I said, well, do I love the ring? And if you're asking me that, I'm going to tell you hell fucking yeah, do I love this ring? And he goes, well, if you don't use it, why do you love it? I was like, because every morning I wake up and get told a different story about how last night went. And I've been doing it long enough where like I can start to actually know what caused those things, right? Like, oh, you know what? I had a cup of coffee a half hour later in the day than I used to, right? Like, oh, and then look, my resting heart rate overnight went from 52 to 60. You know, like, and it's like, I know, I had one too many glasses of wine last night. Great. Average pulse 70, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like and so I think it does sort of change behavior, but not in like an acute way. Like it's not like I'm going out but if I had like too much wine one night and my heart rate was 70, then maybe that next night, if I had like a client thing now or friends wanted to come over or something, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to dial this back a little bit for tonight because I don't want to have that.
How about a refreshing seltzer?
Yeah, right. How about a refreshing seltzer? So I guess it's not entirely out, but I mean, it's not like I sit there and guide my whole next day.
You're not so worried about the outcome that you have to radically shift. And like even that, like with the Muse, you mentioned that before. Like I hit 4 years right before we hit the new year, and I'm noticing it's like, do I need this now? I don't know. I don't think I've ever needed it to go, that was a shit meditation or that was a really good one.
Sure.
But now I'm going like, about half the time I felt good. That was a real good one. That was like 80%. And to guess and then to like look at the app and go, that's
there you
go. It's like, oh, it's kind of cool to see that. And just like everything else, I don't want that number to go to 0 if I miss a day.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And see, I don't even use the headband anymore because my third one kicked off, and I was
I
like,
just got a new one in the mail.
oh, I can't do it, man. I've given them so much money.
I
just do the time meditation.
I gotta say, the new version's kind of upset me a little bit because I wore mine in my portable sauna, figuring, well, the head's not in, so
sure.
And I believe my sweat ruined the sensor. So I was like, it was probably me. You dumbass, you sat in there for an hour meditating with sweat pouring down your forehead. What did you think electronics would have happen?
I mean, you should be able to sweat even profusely with the monitor on that's supposed to go on bare skin.
When I looked at the website, it looks like what they're saying about the band now. And this is not the version 1 and the version 2, because that's like hard metal. The cloth versions, if you're doing it 3 or more times a week, 6 months is about the average life expectancy of that band.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. That's the one that just shit the bed for me.
I'm on that website enough that I was like, oh, that's new.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
interesting.
Maybe
that's the one that just shit the bed for me. So yeah. I don't. Yeah. No.
Yeah. No.
But well, that's super disappointing. I mean, why? Does not make me want to buy another one.
And I'm wondering if this is just where the technology's at. How do I put an electroconductive, bendable thing on a soft cloth that you can sleep in? I'm just wondering because, it's on your head, it's holding a relative same shape, but it's on and off, it's stretching, it's so is that because I mean, when I looked at it before I ordered a new one, it was like there's lines where you don't see any of the conductive material, and it's clearly from me putting it on and off my head and stretching it, and skin wax and sweat and everything just kind of slowly eroding too.
Sure. No, that makes that. Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing. I thought it was more durable. Like the first one, the hard one.
The first one you couldn't break.
Really? Mine broke.
Oh shit.
Mine definitely broke.
I still have a version 1 and a version 2 that are still functioning. And I have the first S that I believe I lent to my office manager, and she's like, no, it works fine.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe it's stupid user mistake.
No. I think for the heavier users, you're going to do more damage to the whole thing.
All right. Well, listen, you're confirming what I already knew, that I was not getting another one. So,
honestly, I've been fucking with so many other things that there's been days where I just use the timer.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. But back to what we were talking about here. If I really wanted to lose 20 pounds or, meditate a half hour a day or whatever, I have 18 ways from Sunday to prove my bullshit. You know what I mean? I mean, and I think that's great. And when you can keep each other accountable, I mean, dude, there's science out the wazoo that supports people who, have support in achieving a goal are basically 80% more likely, to get it. It's some jaw-dropping number that they accomplish it with versus no accountability coach. It's not even it might as well be night and day.
Yeah. I'm wondering, maybe that's a term because, we go looking for those weird apps. I guarantee if you put accountability coach into the app store.
Oh, somebody's got, yeah.
There's going to be some AI or some just at least message popping up every day. Hey, did you do the thing?
Right. Yeah. Did you do it? Yeah. Yeah. So when we come to, people quitting this, no real surprises there, right? They said only 9% of people really make it.
Stick with it.
Stick with it. Now, that is truly disappointing as well, because, man, don't you kind of...
Disappointing, not surprising, though.
Disappointing, not surprising, yeah. Well, I was kind of going into the second part of what I wanted to kind of bring up here is this word should, because I said, I think I almost slipped and said, I think it should be higher. And then I realized that, oh no, the second part of this is that word should, right? Like, because I think a lot of the biohacking world in particular has a tendency to sort of wag their finger at sort of the uninitiated and say, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. And it's very sort of preachy and
and like that's the other thing. You don't know where somebody's at. So that's always been
well, it's but and it's like dogmatic too, right? Like to your point,
absolutely.
Right? Like, so it's like, oh, you have to do this. You should be doing it this way. You should be cooking your meat this way.
What do you mean you aren't putting 2 scoops of collagen into your coffee every morning?
Right. Well, I mean, I did Bulletproof for like a couple years, but and I don't know why, honestly, I stopped. But man, that is a weird habit.
I'll say it. I do enjoy the coffee as long as it's blended.
So, I mean, I never bought Bulletproof brand.
No, not the brand, but I'm saying like as long as you're putting the butter and the MCT oil with the coffee in a blender.
Oh yeah, I always had the immersion blender.
Yeah, but like, some people are like, oh, I use that little whisk thing that comes with the 9-volt battery, and I'm like, no, you're just drinking a layer of fat on the top of black coffee.
No, I mean, I use an immersion blender.
Yeah, you gotta get that thing like a latte.
Oh yeah, no. But yeah, I mean, look, that's a fucking weird habit, right? Like, it's like, let's be honest, butter and MCT
and I think
coffee.
that's like a social norm thing, right? So, Asprey claims that, he was in Tibet and he was drinking yak butter tea, that's cultural, sure. and it's completely normal there, right. And here it was like, oh, look at this trendy new thing, which is kind of, Now that I worded it like that, it sounds a fuckload like appropriation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, everything came from somewhere else, right?
Like definitely did.
Yeah, we've been around
New Year's
for
resolutions themselves.
Yeah. We didn't even get the resolutions. Babylonians beat us to that. Either. Yeah. No, I mean, come on, like everything comes from somewhere. So I think it'd be a little unfair to appropriate to call it appropriation because you're just like. Well,
I put it in coffee, not tea.
These guys are like, single digit body fat. Now, granted, they live in a, Tibet somewhere in a monastery or whatever.
Walking up Mile High Mountains.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, I mean, look, if you're like, hey, look, the science behind this. I mean, look, the science behind it's pretty solid. But
yeah,
but like what's interesting, I don't know. It's like. Shit, where we were going with that, man. We were off going anywhere somewhere on that, but
were we?
But no, yeah, no, but so anyway, I lost it.
That's okay, man.
No, so I guess where I was going with that was that some of the weird things that people can do out there for resolutions, like it's all got like. It's almost like more fun now, right? Like for me, like if somebody said, and this is how I got into Bulletproof, somebody was like, hey, look, it's be good for your cognition. It's good for your skin. It's good. I was like,
yeah,
well, none of those things sound bad. I'm just going to give it a shot. Right. Like, I mean, and it's tolerable. It's not going to make me puke or anything, but it makes more of a game out of it. Right. Like, because you're like, oh, I got to buy an immersion blender because doing it just a pat of butter was fucking gross. Like,
and it's almost like, you ritualize certain things,
and
right?
You ritualize it, right? Like me making the Bulletproof in the morning, like that was,
this is a thing that I do.
There's a sacredness to this. It's like,
even like cigarette smoking, even people come on. I mean, not only is it ridiculously addictive, there's like here's when I have a cigarette, here's where I go, and here's what I do, totally. And I mean, like I'm like that with cannabis.
Well, sure. I mean, I think everybody's like that with whatever their thing is, right?
Their thing is, yeah.
Interestingly, when I used to smoke cigarettes years and years ago, I did not have an association with an activity.
Really?
I liked the act of having a cigarette, like the motions and whatnot. So I guess that kind of skates in that territory.
Yeah.
But like, I wasn't like, oh, I need a cigarette after sex, or I need a cigarette with my coffee, or I need a cigarette when I'm driving, or I need a cigarette, like I never
associated it with a certain,
that thing, right?
But I'm wondering, how much were you smoking too? Was this?
I mean, I was smoking a pack a day. No, I was smoking a pack a day, but I mean, And like when I was, I was working at an ad agency in Manhattan, and like we would go downstairs for cigarette breaks, I think primarily just to stand up and walk around from our desk. Like it wasn't like, it was less
cigarette
motivating.
breaks for better health.
Yeah. I mean, but this was before we, there was
Any
no such
warning
thing
labels
as
were
a
on packs
standing
of
desk.
cigarettes?
Yeah. No, it was, no, there was no standing desks or anything like that. So this was long before
Nobody was
those
on a
crazes.
treadmill under their desk.
No. Although, did you see that viral video, that Chinese guy chain smoking during a marathon?
I did.
That shit was intense. Like, that dude was no joke.
You know what? Like, no one's gonna fuck with that dude. You know?
No, dude. What the fuck?
Why? He's got a mental thing that most people just can't develop.
He is fucking batshit crazy, is what you meant to say, Tom.
He will chase you down with a fucking hammer and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
So, dude, that, you know what is fucking jaw dropping about that? Did you see his marathon time was like a 3:27 or something bananas? It was like I was like, holy fucking shit. Are you serious?
He's got somebody at the end of the pack walking it, going like, this is my first marathon, man. I'm really getting myself together.
Yeah. Dude, I can't even imagine. First of all, I couldn't even imagine doing a 3.5 hour marathon, like in any, for any reason. Right. But I sure as shit don't think I could have put down a pack of Reds while I was doing it. And he's from China, so that shit isn't even a Marlboro Red. That's like fucking.
It's non-filtered.
It's like road tar, right? Like that's just like rolled road tar. That's just
Can you make the tobacco stronger?
Oh, man. Yeah, he's like, whoa. These unfiltered Pall Malls are like light cigarettes in my country. Like,
please go double on the menthol, and if you can, put more formaldehyde in it.
This is what we give to our toddlers. This is not what us adults smoke, please.
It's like, what are those, Virginia Slims?
Yeah. Right. And you just want to be like, where did this guy grow up he
grew up
possible?
Inside the Marlboro man's lungs.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, wow. But it's funny though, when I was a smoker, I think I tried to quit a couple times, but I also wasn't one of these people who was like, I'm going to go through the torture of quitting smoking. I literally went to a hypnotist and the shit was blotted out like instantaneously.
That's amazing.
And like, so I like, even that, I'm like, I'm not leaving this to chance. If I really want to fucking quit, I'm going to do what science says works.
But I also feel like, oh shit, I should be careful with that. Like, so I threw up the Psychology Today why you shouldn't do a New Year's resolution.
Oh.
And one of the big things is, like, you're kind of on the fence about it. Are you half in? Is this something you really want to do? And are you willing to take actionable changes to do so? If you're I think we're far enough away from these patients. I'm not going to give their names, but I used to do a stop smoking protocol, and it was based on a protocol that was developed for heroin addiction. And we get really good results with it. But the screener is, why are you quitting? Right? So I had this couple that was coming in. They paid me, for 2 treatment packages. And then during the second treatment, they're like, well, we just went to the Indian reservation and bought 10 cartons of cigarettes. So we're probably going to smoke those before we quit. And I'm looking at them like, you just handed me a couple of big checks here, and why the fuck would you do that?
Right.
Like, at first treatment, I said, look, if you can, get rid of all the smoking paraphernalia as well. Get the ashtrays clean and get them out, Right. And like, now you're telling me you got a trunk full of cigarettes. It's like, what?
You're like a teenager in a weird 80s movie. Like, what do you do? You went to a reservation and you got what?
Well, they didn't have to pay tax there.
I mean, I understand the motivation financially, but I don't understand why somebody who...
You know what's cheaper than driving to a reservation? Not smoking.
Yeah. Right. Do you know how much you would spend on cigarettes this way? Zero.
You wouldn't even spend money on gas.
You did, in fact, pay more than zero for these cigarettes, correct? Yes.
Yeah, you go to the reservation and they just throw them at you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like, but imagine, I guess, I guess this is why I don't really make New Year's resolutions, because like I don't, when I have the obsession gene for something, like that generally doesn't align with New Year's.
That's
But
gonna
I'm
make
gonna
the
go all in on it.
change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go all in on something, right? Like, and what I go all in on, I'm gonna go all in on, and that could happen in July, or it could happen in September, or it could
and
happen.
I would also say there's probably a little bit of psychology somewhere in here, where if it's dark and dreary, and we're doing this right around the short, like, I mean, you were essentially what, 11 days after the shortest day of the year.
Right.
It's still dark out. We're going to want comfort. We're going to want to hold on to the things that get us through the dark times.
Right.
You know, maybe New Year's Eve, or maybe a resolution should be done in the spring.
In the spring, yeah.
You know, I wonder if we just shifted it 3 or 4 months down the road, would the outcomes be better? Why? Hey, man, it's nice out. I'm going to go for that jog.
Super nice. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And what's it take? 90 days to really cement a habit, you know? So like, if you can start your resolution on the longest day of the year, you'd have July, August, September. Yeah. Yeah. That's like prime time, like right there.
I don't know if we can start a movement.
No,
I would like to do that experiment.
The vernal equinox resolution.
Yeah. Why not do it on the longest day of the year?
Yeah, you know, that would be,
or even 90 days leading up to it. Make it some kind of weird Lent or Passover.
Yeah, make it some kind of weird Aztec-y kind of thing, and just align it with an equinox.
Honestly, if you pair it with like some cultural significance, you know, white people will be like, "Oh man, I got trained in the Mayan resolution protocol."
Mayan resolution protocol.
Mayan resolution.
Oh man,
shaman. Really, Becky? Tell me more about that.
Did you see this tattoo I got?
That's just totally. It's the Norse rune for changes in your life.
Yeah, right. Yeah. This is a Toltec, icon. It means virality.
When I was in Chile.
Yeah, exactly.
I met a shaman.
Yeah. I love that white guy who's like, you know, from Long Island, and then suddenly correctly pronounces like Teotihuacan. Like,
they pronounce it pho. Okay, can I get the noodles?
Yeah, right, exactly, right, yeah. Give me those noodle things. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, I actually would be almost excited to do a vernal equinox episode where we make our first vernal.
We should try and get some momentum behind it. Be like, all right, can we get like 10 people to sign up and do a little experiment ourselves?
I'm not going to hold my breath on this. Yeah,
you know, we're going to forget. We're going to hang up and be like, I got other shit to do.
I don't think starting a trend of vernal resolutions is really going to be in our future.
No.
But listen, it's going to make a fun episode around June 20th or 21st or whenever that is, 22nd, somewhere in there. Yeah. So back to this one real quick. Like, you know, I guess what I don't hear a lot of, and it thought when we were looking through all this resolution stuff, you don't see a lot of like what totally didn't fucking work this year, and like like a resolution to never do again. Like that's a list that I'm like, for example, and I'll just tell you, the blue trochee thing. It is my, New Year's resolution to never do that again, because it was a stupid waste of money and just made
and I remember we were going back and forth about it, and you were kind of like going, oh, maybe it's the synergistic effect of all three, and I'm like,
and it was nothing.
None of them are a therapeutic dose, man.
Well, it was
a cigarette. I'll give you some methylene blue, and
chug a Starbucks venti, and be like, you're all good, No, but that is like absolutely not something that I would engage in again.
But once again, man, I remember everybody sticking their blue tongue out.
Totes.
All the influencers, same week.
And I also got to tell you, I did try for the first time organ meat. And I can't say that. When I was a kid, my mom used to make beef heart, and we always thought it was funny as kids. We'd call it beef hearts, and it was like
Why
this.
wouldn't you? I mean, that
I mean,
seems
why?
natural.
Yeah, this seems like a layup.
It's
Yeah,
low hanging fruit. You
yeah,
got to
right.
do it.
And but every Friday, my mom would make this thing in a pressure cooker, and I'm talking about the old school pressure cookers with the little rocker and bobbin thing on the top. Right? You know,
Always the possibility of something exploding.
yeah, totally. And we never thought we'd throw some A1 sauce on that thing, and we'd be off to the races. And I ate that every week, probably for
theoretically
15 years.
It's just muscle. It's not even really.
No, I get it, but I never thought it was weird. And then I went to college and sort of like societalized a little bit, you know, like outside of my. And now the thought of eating organ meat literally repulses me. I'm like, you know, I'm not the health guy who's like, you know what, I need in my life liver. No,
yeah, well,
no.
you know, well, like we were knocking on the Liver King the other week. You know, it for me. I was like, oh, thank God he was on steroids because I didn't want to have to do that.
Yeah, man, no, man, yeah. I'm like, I got to be honest. I tried some this year. And I tried it a couple times, and I'm gonna de-resolution to eat that shit ever again because it's like. But you can get it pulverized, right? In sort of a pill
like
now.
Pate kind of thing.
No, in a pill, like a veggie capsule. Yeah, I dried out and, you know, like ground up and stuff.
Yeah.
It's literally probably the only way I'm going to ever get that.
You know, I will tell you the only way I've had it that, like, I was like, oh, no, I'm cool with this. John Brown's Butcher in, you know, like by Oregon Ridge over here.
Mm-hmm.
They did, and I don't know if it was Portuguese, I don't know if it was Spanish. The flavors were on point. It was beef and beef liver. And there was enough beef liver where it's like, I know it's there, but it was so good, and it was like ground into sausage, man. You know, it's like you couldn't, and
so
I
couldn't tell.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's almost like, you know, you got to like cook your kids' veggies into something that doesn't look or taste like veggies. You know, that one I was like, no, this is cool. You know,
that sounds interesting though. I will have to say, like, see, now that's a good culinary use of like getting people to eat their organ meat, right? Like,
yeah.
If you make it into a sausage and it becomes like sort of just homogenized and it's got like it's got that, I assume it had that sort of gamey.
Yeah, a little bit of that like irony kind of a little bit of like almost that blood taste, you know?
Yeah, right. So, but you know, that's inevitable, I suppose, right? I mean,
well, but you know, also they're grass-fed, grass-finished, you know, all the products they bring in. So it was like,
and so here's another fun. And it's funny you brought that up, and it's like there's another piece of science that ain't nobody fucking heard of 20 years ago. Like when I was a kid, a cow's a fucking cow. There's brown ones and there's black and white ones, but they're all fucking cows.
There's milk cows, there's meat cows. That's it.
Right. And it took me half my life when I was a kid to figure out that the black and white ones were for milk. I just thought cows were cows. Like it didn't even occur to me. I'm just like, you know, and nor did I care. Who gives a shit? I'm eating, you know, whatever my parents made for me.
You know, I mean, it's in a plastic wrapped thing at the grocery store. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, just, you know, and then my dad's going through and like, you know, I don't know, maybe I do this too. Yeah, you know what? No, I take that back. I definitely do this too. Do you turn into like some meat sommelier when you go to the grocery store? You're like, I'm going to pick out.
No, it's got to be the top round for this.
Yeah, right.
We're going to prepare it this way.
No, the marbling on this is we can't do this.
We got to have a conversation with the butcher.
Yeah, I got to go to ask this minimum wage guy who basically is a college student looking at the grocery store.
He's got a lab coat on. He knows what's up.
He's like high as balls going, yeah, bro, I don't know the answer to that question.
I was told that if I ask you for this cut, you'll make it for me. Man, we don't even have a saw here.
Yeah, like whatever you're talking about is incorrect. Yeah.
What do you think?
Somebody has lied to you, sir. Yeah, somebody is very lied to you.
Blood on my jacket. It's Kool-Aid.
Right. No, but like now it's like now, I mean, here's another should, right? You should not eat anything that's not grass fed. Says fucking who? Millennia have gone by. We've eaten cows, like,
but
period.
Honestly, I would argue that for millennia, all cows were grass fed.
Well, of course they were, and I know we fucked that up.
We hit a time where we were like feeding them full of like corn and filler.
No, I know that,
and
that's
we were
why
giving them chicken shit too.
Right, but here's my point though: is like no one ever cared whether it was grass fed or grain fed. Like, oh wait, hold on. I had a guy the other day ask me. He's like, "Well, it's grass fed, but is it grass finished or is it grain finished?" Because I know a lot of people pull that.
Well, yeah, because it's cheaper to fatten them up right before you kill them to throw a bunch of grain in them and get some marbling.
No, I know, but how bullshit is that? Because all the effect of the grass fed cow goes completely fucking away.
Yeah. And it's funny because then like. It's like, well, these are free range eggs. Well, no, are they pasture raised eggs? Because there's a difference.
Right. But like that's the fucking marketing side of it, which which we have talked about a bunch. I think is funny. But like, yeah, I mean, we have, I guess, going back to the options though, right? Like, I mean, I went to the grocery store for the first time. We've been doing online groceries since COVID, basically, because we realized that like if you do grocery shopping when you're full versus going to the grocery store when you're hungry, you're
saving at least $200 for a family.
At least it is like, yeah, right. You're like,
wait a minute, what? I didn't need the chocolate-filled marshmallows.
No, you know what we got? We got the other day. My daughter and I are in the grocery store, and she's like, hands me this thing. She goes, "You got to get this." And it was black truffle cheddar. And I was like, well, I like where this is going.
Your daughter has a very sophisticated palate, and I support that decision.
My kids talk about bougie popcorn. I for years, my kids, when we watched a movie, popcorn in my house, and this just tells you how long I've been like a health nerd. Popcorn in my house is air popped popcorn, non-GMO, organic popcorn with ghee that I made myself for years.
Clarified your own butter.
No, I made ghee. That's one step past clarified butter. Get your shit together.
I'm sorry. I'm slacking.
Like, and then actually no, clarified butter. So butter, clarified, brown, ghee. That's the progression. And I'm sure somebody could yell and scream at me that I missed one in there, or there's some, shushy town in upstate New York that invented like 3 filler steps in the middle. Or some white guy that lives on an ashram. Right. But yeah, and truffle salt. Like so the popcorn in my house is ghee and truffle salt.
You know what? So I love that. And I will say, like, TJ Maxx always has like truffle salt or something. And it's like, it's not that as expensive as you would think it is
it's not. And what's another pro tip? And we've done this before too. You go to a Asian market and you get a black truffle, one about this big might cost you $50, right? But you pulverize it in a blender and you put it in a 5-pound bag of regular salt. And it just and you dehydrate
throughout,
and you dehydrate. So it basically like infuses through the entire thing, and like that's it.
That's amazing, man. I never thought to do that.
So my chef friend, who we've known for years, been an executive chef at a bunch of big places. He told me that trick, and he's like, yeah, man, like you'll spend like $15-$20 for a 3-ounce thing of black truffle salt. He goes, for like $40, you could make 5 pounds of it.
But isn't that the way with like almost anything? Like if you have a know-how and a little bit of time.
I mean, sure,
it's like,
I guess.
I mean, that's how fucking Keurig took off.
I don't want
to have to make a whole pot of coffee.
Sure.
All right. So what do I got? The shotgun shell of coffee. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And it's terrible because it's releasing plasticines into your blood.
Into your bloodstream. And
so that's
pound of coffee now costs $30.
Yeah, right. A pound of coffee now costs $30. Oh, and by the way, if you did this twice a day for a year, you basically could shit out like a family of credit cards is how much plastic you fucking consumed.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, nope. And God only knows what other fucking wacko chemicals come along for that journey. But I'm sure. We do have to tilt our hat to Keurig for one thing. Like they got us the idea of single serve coffee. So the coffee maker that I have now that I fucking love, love, it grinds your beans right away, like right as a thing. And that's not super unique, but it makes it in single or half cup increments.
Wow.
So I could make a cup and a half, or I could make a half a cup or a full cup, and then you just do it a second
multiples
time.
of that.
Right.
Yeah.
But
That's
there's a water
cool.
reservoir on the side, and it grinds it up and it puts it in there. And what's cool about it is it's like got nothing touching it. It's like basically
I think we might have gotten that for my mother-in-law for Christmas.
Yeah, they're amazing, and
they're not stupid expensive though.
No,
right?
This is stupid expensive.
All right, this is not what we got my mother-in-law.
Yeah, no,
sorry,
this thing was $800. This thing was $800, and that's the problem. Right?
This is that's one kid for 1 month at private school for us.
No, I know, and that's so the problem. The only reason I got it, to be honest with you, and I felt like an asshole when I bought it, and I almost returned it because I felt like such an asshole. But it's a stupid expensive coffee maker, and years ago I got into the grind coffee, right? And Breville had this awesome coffee maker that just started breaking like crazy. And like, I read all these reviews of their new one, and it was basically the same exact problem, but happening more. And I'm like, I can't sign up for that problem again voluntarily, because that is also a lesser expensive coffee maker. But if you've got to buy 3 of them in the same amount of time, it doesn't really make a difference. So I found this one, which was a little bit more, but what's neat about it, my wife makes, she has an espresso machine, but it makes those like lattes and stuff.
Yeah.
But this one is great. It's got a little pot on it. It's like, oh, if you want a cappuccino, fill the milk to here. If you want a latte, fill it to here. If you want an Americano, fill it to here. And you literally just fill that. You hit the corresponding button on the top, and it literally makes the entire thing for you.
Does the whole thing for you.
And it looks like it came from Starbucks. And tastes like it came from Starbucks. That's
great. Except I don't like Starbucks. But I
get
what you're saying there.
But you can put whatever coffee you want.
Cup. Yeah.
Yeah. You want whatever coffee you want. So, and I don't have to make a pot of coffee and let it sit there all day while I get around to drinking the second cup later on. So anyway.
Yeah, I gotcha.
We digress. But anyway, so, a year later, no less people making resolutions, no more people making them work.
Keeping them.
But yeah, listen, I mean, for what it's worth, I do think it's exciting that people for once a year do, even for a fleeting moment, give a shit about their health, because that's better than 0 times a year. Now, I guess the real question is, how do you cement this
part
in?
Of that 9%?
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, what are you getting into these days?
Man, you beat me to the question.
Sure.
I just ordered, and I just got it a couple days ago. One of the older practitioners in the Japanese tradition just wrote a book called 50 Years of Practice. And I'm waiting to clear a couple of things off my schedule, because his first 2 books were some are really like heavy with theory, were so practical, so approachable, so hands-on that you read the book and you can immediately apply those things in clinic. And,
that's cool.
To hear this guy, to have the pleasure of seeing him twice in lecture, in a seminar, and to like actually enjoy his presence.
Sure.
You see that come through in the book, even though, clearly this was translated out of Japanese. You still get his humor, you still get his personality. So
sure.
I really want to see what he's saying, and I'm super excited about that.
Interesting. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
What are you up to, man?
All roads lead me to artificial intelligence right now, actually.
Jeez.
I am, talk about something that you look at kind of once a year. For me, I'm in technology for a living, obviously. And so I spend my whole life with it. And you would think that would mean I would have like this like 24/7 attitude towards it. And I think I probably did more when I was younger, but like reality is like, if you're a carpenter all day, like you don't want to come home and build cabinets for your kids, right? You just want to maybe have a beer.
Shoemaker's sons, kids have no shoes, right?
Yeah. And so like, I don't really I try not to keep up too much on like all of the various programming things going on, because it's just, it's a very fast paced world, and more of them die than survive. So like, I kind of need to like let them kind of get some breathing room around them and kind of get some distraction, and then I'll jump in. But my time's too valuable to like be wasted on something that's going to be dead in 6 months. Like I can't get my head around
that's
that.
like social media platforms for me, man. It's like, hey, are you on this? Are you on that? Look, man.
Yeah, call me when there's a few more.
Call me when there's a good number of people signed up.
Right, exactly. And like that's kind of how I feel. But AI is one of these things, man, that boy, I'll tell you what, it's getting somebody who's really paying attention, I should say. Like AI has two faces right now, and I think that I would actually love to do a whole episode on just this, because AI on the one side will tell you some cool jokes, right? Or it'll, paint a picture.
Were you on the dad joke generator again?
Yeah, right, exactly. Or it'll tell you like, I don't know. It can be a novelty, right? And then there's like another shade of that side that basically is like, I don't know if you've played with Dolly.
Dude, should we give the Easter egg up or no?
Yeah, no, not yet. Yeah, but like Dolly.
Okay.
But Dolly and like all these, like I got a new one sent to me today actually called Tome, which I haven't really looked at too much.
Is that a writing one or is that
it makes like websites, it looks like, basically.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like so like and then like the chat GBD or TBD.
I still haven't logged into that one.
Yeah.
I will, and I mean, I think I told you about Moobert, the music app.
Oh yeah, Moobert. Yeah, exactly. And like, and the basically anything that's like this open AI kind of thing, right? Like there's a lot of them out there. And like, so I was playing with them today, and it's interesting, right? That you can say, make me an avocado armchair, right? And like, AI draws you an avocado armchair, right?
And they'll give you 20 different versions of it that are all perfect.
And like, I think that's fun, but like, okay, the average person does what, 10, 15 of those. And they're like, all right, that was a fun trick. And moving on. But to somebody who's paying attention and knows about like the impact that could eventually have on us, like that is absolutely pivotal.
I sent one to my web designer that writes content. And, I did the free trial and I'm like, what do you think about this? This is actually not that bad. I had it generate a blog post.
Sure.
And she goes, we're publishing this. And then she immediately went and bought the subscription to it. That's
funny.
And I'm like, you don't tell any of your other clients you're using it, because it looks like you're writing all this.
Well, so here's the problem, right? Like so here's where this bounces out, and this we definitely would get into second show territory.
We probably let's just put this on the books for next week.
Yeah, right. But like, you think about it, like at what point, dude, that one dude just won an art competition. It was an AI driven thing. And his argument was, well, I am the artist. I had to come up with the trigger. I did thousands of generations to trigger this piece. I kept refining it. And so like, I am the artist. And they're like, but you didn't do this. He's like, well, I mean, did a photographer go in and put pixels?
Make the things happen?
No.
Well, even electronic music, he didn't really technically play anything.
Sure, right. Yeah, exactly.
It's still music.
But he also did not play anything. The instrument is his rig, right? Like,
but maybe one could argue that the paintbrush is the way you word.
Well, no, I went to art school twice, brother. Yeah, trust me, I figured out how to rationalize.
I don't know what I'm talking to you about.
87 race from fucking Sunday, bro. Yeah, so. But yeah, anyway, cool, man. Well, listen, let's talk about that later, shall we?
I think so, man. Awesome.
All right. In the meantime, have a good one.
You too.
Later, brother.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.